Hello, I'm Leah Johnson Clark from the Calgary Foundation, a donor relations advisor here. And today I'm happy to have joining me our advisor engagement committee members. We are here to talk today about some of our tax advice for both advisors and their clients. And so welcome to today's event. Would you please introduce yourselves for me?
Sounds good. My name is Melanie McDonald. I'm on the board of the Calgary Foundation. I'm the chair of the Professional Advisors Engagement Committee, and I'm also on the Governance Committee. Day to day, I'm the VP and Regional Director for BMO Trust Company. Over to you, Adam.
Thank you. I'm Adam Hoffman. I'm a professional trustee and previously worked in wealth management as a tax lawyer at a firm that doesn't exist anymore, Shane Earl & Calnan, and I'm on the Advisory Engagement Committee.
Hi, I'm Susan O'Brien, and I'm a board member at the Calgary Foundation, and I'm on the Advisor Engagement Committee as well with my colleagues here. In my day job, I work as a partner at Richardson Wealth and really counsel families on a little bit of what we're going to talk about today: intergenerational wealth transfers, incorporating plans, philanthropy, legacy, just all the fun stuff that people really want to talk about.
Wonderful. So I guess we'll just start from there. So Susan, what is the biggest risk you see for advisors in this transfer of generational wealth happening?
So when I think about generational wealth, I think people don't realize the magnitude of the money that's going to be moving from what people refer to as the silent generation or baby boomers. There's going to be about $1.3 trillion, these are Canadian numbers, updated by Richardson Wealth, moving into millennials and Gen Zs. So we're going to see all of this money moving from one generation to another generation. And the risk for advisors in my business is that they don't have all the family members as their clients. And so it's often cited that 70% of spouses will leave an advisor after a death of a spouse. And that's just because advisors don't have relationships with both spouses. But people forget that 66% of adult children also leave advisors after the death of a parent. So I think there's amazing opportunities for people to realize the magnitude of what's coming and then have processes and practices in their practice that incorporate all members of a family, all generations of a family.
And just to add to that, I think it's important for advisors to take the conversation deep. So for a client to meet their objectives, the advisor may need to push some assumptions that the client may have and get them to take off their rose-colored glasses with respect to family dynamics. Lots of clients I think that I've dealt with don't think there's going to be any fights later or the family can figure out business issues. But that often is not the case. So what advisors I think they need to do is have a deeper conversation and actually look at the estate plan, look at the will, and say, if we implemented it today, would this actually work? Where would the money come from? Who's going to be running the board? Have we thought through all of the deeper issues to make sure this is really going to work? Because as an estate litigator, lots of times I've seen plans that the will looks great, but when you actually try to implement it, it doesn't work because all the pieces do not connect well together.
Yeah, I call that living in the plan. I remember as an estate lawyer, I made those plans that didn't actually work, and thinking about how you live in them is important. And we like to think of ourselves, most of our clients are family oriented. And so the fact that we're only serving the one client or the couple, when we think of ourselves as family oriented and trying to serve a family, you're missing the boat by not being multi-generational in your advice and the context in which you're trying to provide value to your clients.
I think those are really key points for advisors. So, as Melanie said, having those difficult conversations, taking off the rose-colored glasses, I think that's fabulous.
But your rose-colored glasses are so nice. Don't take them off.
Okay, let me just take them off. Okay, take them off.
Yeah.
Having the difficult conversations that often people don't want to do.
Yeah.
And then, yes, having members of an entire generation, like having family meetings after the estate plan. Melanie talks about estate litigation. I talk about creating goodwill. You talk about living plans. Yes, wrapping our arms around the whole client-family relationship, I think, is going to be really important in this huge wealth transfer that's occurring.
So within that wealth transfer that you're all speaking towards, where do you see those opportunities for the family, both the ones that are leaving the money and the ones that will be inheriting that generational wealth?
the opportunity is in the moment, in contemplating the wealth transfer and doing it effectively. We live busy lives. This is a big step in people's lives where they are able to focus on what matters to them. And that focus on leaving an effective family legacy comes to a point at the time of estate transfer or wealth transfer, but so you get to really work on it, but it's truly a day-to-day thing. And so the opportunity there is using these moments like succession planning and estate planning or philanthropy strategy as being one of those catalysts, one of those moments in time where you can really lean in and have an effective opportunity to do something more broadly through the long term in enacting that plan through time. So especially in philanthropy strategy, the most common example would be the moment where you have a liquidity event of some type, or you just know that you have a future tax planning need, and so you're talking about something like a foundation or making a big charitable donation. That's a really great opportunity to have a bigger conversation about what's our family wealth stand for, what's our why, what matters to us, and to develop a stronger family culture around your relationship with money because of these moments in time.
I think sometimes also advisors run into the roadblock that clients can't get to decision making, or there's some areas that they're hard to get past. And I think what's really important is I try to tell clients to focus on the next 5 years. Like, let's think about that and then we can revisit it. And then sometimes even setting a deadline. You're going to go down south in November. Let's finish off the will. Let's finish off this, and then we can keep working on it. Because it's really fulfilling to, otherwise it can be stressful, and to be able to help clients move on to the next step.
I agree. I think that's part of our role as advisors, is to try to get things done and get things implemented. And I like that, you have to seize the moment, or you have to seize the timeline. You're going on a trip, let's get this done. I think, though, for advisors in my industry and the wealth management industry, what they really struggle with, though, is process. So they've been very, focused over the last number of years just on investments and investment strategy, and that's often where they see their strength. And I think the real opportunity here is to go outside of that and to have processes built in and touch points with clients that are built in, so that it's part of your process of deepening your practice, having those great conversations, making sure you have the touch points, and that you're having these difficult conversations on estate planning, legacy, disability, all the big things in life that, as Melanie said, we don't like to face, but we're going to be faced with them, so let's plan around them. So for me, I think a lot of advisors need more process in their business and more touch points in their business to actually have those thoughtful, difficult conversations with clients.
That's great, thank you. So beyond those difficult conversations, do you find that philanthropy could play a role in retaining client relationships, building client relationships, and maybe easing some of those difficult conversations so there might be a happier outcome and or opinion once they leave your office?
Are you looking at me? Because I'm happy to hop in there. I think legacy conversations are absolutely, and philanthropic conversations are great conversations to have with clients, because nobody else is having them. People think about, I need to get my will done, I'm going on a holiday, I have children, and this and that. But often advisors don't take the time to truly understand what's important to them. Adam, you talked a little bit about it when you said, the why of the family relationship. So when you talk about, do you want to leave something big? How do you want to change the world? I found that in my own relationship and in my own family and in my client families, once we discussed philanthropy and actually leaving an amount in our will and my ongoing work with the Calgary Foundation, it really brought us together as a family. And so what I've noticed is that it's great education for my own family to learn about and be aware of the issues in Calgary, and to be actually making an impact on those issues while they're living, and then, in a will. It's really brought the family together. And I find with my client families can often bring the family together, and it's a great educational opportunity. So, and that is the uplifting part of doing a will, right? That is the fun, uplifting, I can make a difference part. So yes, it's very exciting.
I love the point about bringing the family together. Sometimes financial literacy can get in the way of effective family conversations. By that I mean some family managers will kind of shrink back when you start talking about investment policy, right? But we can all lean in on what matters to us from a philanthropic perspective on how on what arms of charity really matter to us, and trying to. It's also a beautiful place, I find, to thread values through generations, because you may not even be able to use the same language about what you care about, but as you start to explore I care about building communities. And so I'm thinking of a family meeting where the older generation in real estate was focused on how much they value like creating more physical spaces. And the younger generation couldn't quite thread the needle on how important relief from poverty was as it related to their older generation's interest in that, until they were able to see how subsidized housing is a very obvious overlap. So getting people to speak a language where they can actually find common ground, I think, is a really beautiful aspect of philanthropy.
That's a wonderful story.
I think about retaining and building, like you said, not everyone's having these conversations, and many of our clients may have more than one advisor. So if you're their advisor that goes deep on philanthropy, they'll really appreciate that. Because clients are super passionate about the causes they give to, and they're very fulfilled when that happens. So if you can do that, and then retaining and building as well. I think of lots of business families, they start thinking about their teenagers. How are we going to get them ready to take over the business someday? Do they want to come into the business? So as teenagers, even then getting them involved in philanthropy conversations, choosing charities, analyzing charities, it's a great way to build the family, and then you're giving a gift to the parents or the older generations of getting the children to start thinking about that. And I think also being an inheritor of wealth, understanding the values of your parents and grandparents or other family members that you're inheriting from helps with your foundation, which really starts out when people are children, teenagers, and young adults.
So having these conversations of legacy and philanthropy, what I think we're all seeing is that parents are not just passing on their wealth, but through them they're passing on their values. Mm-hmm. And they're also incorporating their children's values, like you said, their adult children's values, which may be looking at it slightly differently, but often coming to the same end result.
Yeah. We almost always find overlaps, right? And the real legacy you pass on, one of my ballywicks or soapbox topics is the fact that Webster's dictionary kind of have their definitions reversed. That their number one legacy that they describe is sort of the gift or donation or bequest, which is obviously important to us here at the Calgary Foundation. But I think that the gift or donation or bequest is the number two definition, because it follows that what you really leave behind is how you made an impact on the people around you. And so someday Webster's will flip that definition if I talk about it enough, but it really flows from what kind of impact are you trying to leave on the people that you care about is why you make certain bequests.
And you're a leader in the community, and you're a leader in your family, so it's just got ripple effects, through everything, which is really beautiful to see. And you can see people once they're engaged in that process, and probably both see that as well, that often they start somewhere on their journey, but as they continue and update their wills and their plans and everything and incorporate the family, then they become even more excited. And often that excitement leads to an increase of giving in many, many ways, both to the Calgary Foundation, of their time, to what's really important to them, and then deepens all those family conversations. So it's just amazing the goodwill that can be created within the family and within the community.
Great, thank you. Shifting gears a little bit, drilling down more into some of the recent tax changes we have seen in Canada, one of them being the capital gains inclusion rate. We know this is going to impact the next generation, especially on the transfer of properties and wealth. Would you mind just drilling down into how clients might best prepare for this change to the taxation and what they can do to offset a little bit of that?
So I think tax as part of making philanthropy decisions is a factor, and in particular can affect the timing of when you give and how much you give, and what property you are giving. I think one of the biggest things is donor advised funds are really a great tool to have a vehicle ready to accept gifts when you have tax issues. So, and one of the best things about it is if we have, people may have triggered gains earlier this year before the capital gains went up. You may think about a donation this year, but you don't want to feel rushed about the charities you're giving to. So setting up your own donor advised fund, which can happen very quickly. Donating this year, you'll get the receipt, but in the years to come, you can pick the charities that you want. But you need to be working with your advisors to figure out, as part of your overall wealth plan, because it comes to a bigger issue when you start talking about the magnitude. Your wealth is this big. How much do you and your partner need for your lifetime? What other things do you want to support family? How is my assets going to grow? What is going to be the income? And figuring out how and what you're going to give.
I think those are excellent points, Melanie. I know that often we've talked a little bit about estate planning here and legacy and philanthropic giving. And when I have my client relationships, I'm always like starting at the end with the estate plan and not the beginning. And when you start with the estate plan at the end, you actually see how much tax is payable in that estate. And that gives people different motivations. Like, is there a way that I can reduce my taxes? And that's whether there are recent changes or there will always be tax changes. How can I reduce my taxes? Maybe philanthropy now, I can give a little bit bigger amount than I thought. Or maybe I start giving while I'm living. Why wait till the end? And maybe I can't use all those charitable tax credits. So I start giving while I'm living, incorporating the family, doing all of that kind of stuff. So I always think tax conversations are important, but they're not of the utmost importance. What's really important is passing on your values, your legacy, using those great vehicles like donor-advised family funds, and then incorporating tax into the overall planning. I know Adam has a great saying, so I'm not going to say it because I use it too. You can go ahead.
The tax tail wags the dog.
So I
all
often
the
say
time.
the tax tail wags the dog. So people will do things just for tax.
Yeah.
But it's not really the right decision for them.
No.
So when I saw Adam has the same expression as I do, I thought that was great. So maybe I'll turn it over
From
to you,
a tax
Adam.
lawyer, right? So
Yes.
if I can say that, then anyone can. But if the tax tail's wagging the family dog, then two things tend to manifest, which is you're saving the amount of tax that requires a lot of rigidity and complexity in your structure design. So things get hard to undo if things change with families through time, and the complexity, there's only some small cross-section of families that enjoy keeping up with the tax nerds that are structuring away, and so
Very small.
Very small. So, but whereas, philanthropy is almost just like a specified, it's changing from your taxes going to the general collective good through the government to the specific that matters to your family in a really beautiful way, because you're translating tax savings to philanthropy. And I think that's something that's really empowering for people when they realize that the way that they're relating to their tax planning is one pot to the other in a pretty beautiful way, in a way that aligns with their family, and through time probably is a little bit selfish because it's helping them grow their family culture. It's a great way to get family together. So not only are you doing good in the ways that you care about in the community, but you're really strengthening your family too. So it's so instead of complaining about the federal government not being effective with the way that their taxes are being redeployed, which happens all the time in conversation, you can kind of deflect that and be like, well, let's focus on philanthropy.
Did I hear in that comment that, some people can have a choice? They can either give the money to the CRA,
Yeah.
or they can give the money to philanthropy.
Yeah.
Right?
Totally. Oh, and the other thing you said that is beautiful, and you start to see in effective professionals and trusted advisors, is the give early conversation. What a beautiful thing to be the type of courageous professional that is explaining that you have enough. We can talk about how you have enough if you want to get more comfortable, but if you are ready to admit that you have enough, then we can start talking about earlier donations and how powerful they can be. So I thought that was a great point too.
And just to add to that, as a professional executor, especially with people living into the 90s and 100s, you see beneficiaries receiving money in their 70s, or the nice letter from the charity saying the impact of this gift, I get that letter, and not the donor who's no longer with us. So, if you do have enough wealth to, take care of you and your family for your lifetime, thinking about how you can do things earlier, and then enjoying it to see the impact that you've had that gift makes on the community.
And I think for people to really get that peace of mind, I have enough and now I can share. It's really important for the advisors listening on this call that people have a plan, right? They need a plan. They need an estate plan. They need a living plan. They need a tax plan, they need an insurance plan, they need an investment plan, they need a totally customized, holistic plan for them and their family. So I think advisors really need to be thinking about that and how they can improve their processes to incorporate that.
Thank you. And so just going off of that a little bit, how might we open the conversation towards philanthropy, values, and whatnot, if we're not trying to use tax to wag the dog, as you would say? How would you three open that conversation?
So for me, it's a very simple conversation because in order for me to really do a good job for my clients, I have to really listen to them. I have to ask, we talked about difficult questions, take off the rose-colored glasses. But I also ask for all their documents. So it's very easy for me to ask for the insurance documents, the investment documents, their will, power of attorney, personal directive. And what I've found, 98% of clients and other advisors may have had the same experience. Those documents are either inadequate or outdated or no longer reflect wishes. And so having a meeting with your clients to say, this is what these say, is this really what you want? And have you thought about this? And have you thought about that? And once you have the plan showing the taxes, you can pay CRA or you can maybe donate to the Calgary Foundation or other charities that are important to you. It starts to all come together. So it's through process, it's through planning, then it's through conversations and really educating people of the opportunities out there. And how exciting is that to know that you have some opportunities for giving while you're living or giving while you're not, and creating good family will.
When I was an estate planner full time, you'd have clients that weren't able to get their instructions to you for like months and years on end, and you were like, how do I get
Nudge,
like how do I
nudge,
how
nudge
to get them there? And like the physical nudge turns into a push, and you're what's but I think the best way to start is to face our fears. You know, our fears of mortality, of complexity are the two that people think about the most. But I think also about people fear having hard conversations in their family. And really the best way to face your fears to get started is just to let the cat out of the bag, so to speak, and just speak to these things. You know, I think facing your fear of death is just like, has to be approached because there's something about the culture we live in. I think we need Dia de las Muertes in North America because like we need to be able to celebrate our past and our future death in a way that's so like a little bit scary for us right now. But probably the most important one is like once you face these fears and you know as the advisor that on the other side of this is going to be a very comfortable conversation. You're going to get a lot out of it as we do this planning. Making them more comfortable taking that big leap is that's probably where I would start is trying to explain how good they're going to feel on the other side of this plan.
I like that. It's a really good point.
I think as an advisor too, you grow and feel more confident to be curious, to ask the extra questions, like what charities do you give to? These ones. Why do you give to those charities? Usually there might be a life event, something to happen to someone in the family. And you say you want to give to this charity, how do you want the charity to use the money? Which could be very different. It could be for equipment, it could be for a program, it could be for research, right? And you keep asking and you sort of start seeing a pattern of when you look at their career, their family, their background, and it gets to the values, and then expanding on that. And then I think another thing is that clients really want us advisors to come with ideas, options, tips and traps, things that they haven't thought of before. What are other people doing? I know sometimes at the Calgary Foundation is like, you could ask the Calgary Foundation what projects need this much left just to get it across the finish line. You know, do I want to deal with a small charity where this gift will have different impact as opposed to a bigger charity? You know, there's just so many options, and I think that's the great thing that I found working with community foundations since I started as an advisor, is you help the client to sort of narrow to some areas, but then you pass it off to the Calgary Foundation team who could talk to the clients about what are the options in Calgary or Canada or in the world, wherever the client wants to have their impact. Because they can drill down on those, you know, if you like animals, you know, there's 30 charities in Calgary that deal with them, you know, and narrow down what programs and who has needs. Because I think that's really what it comes down to. The client will have a passion for an area, but then they want to see how the amount they want to give will impact. And then also being involved, and it's up to the client if they want how much the charity feeds back and tells you what their gift did, or how it's going to affect the community members, because that impact is the fulfillment, which I think can snowball for the client and for their family to do more and do more in different ways.
So as the advisor, you're having the deep conversations with the clients, and then you're turning it over to the experts at the Calgary Foundation.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that's a great idea.
Well, thank you all very much for your time and insight. I appreciate you taking the time to give us a little bit more of your knowledge, your background, and how we might best serve our clients, potential donors, and things like that. So thank you three.
Thanks very much,
Yeah,
Leah.
no problem.
It was great to be here.
Thank you.